Max, do you know if there's like a community chipper that people are sort of, sharing around or anything like that?
I think Catherine can address that.
I was going to jump in here. There are, there's a lot of talk in the Valley about how to share resources and chippers. Chippers are hard, however, because they can break down easily and there's a lot of maintenance, so people don't want to be necessarily sharing. But with that in mind, there's a couple of things to be aware of and a couple of things to just watch the horizon, because we're headed there. Town of Twist was able to get a chipper with grant money from the Department of Ecology. They are working on setting up a chipping program. Right now, it's strictly for people within the town limits. There's also cost share programs and DNR programs, and this is something that Nancy and I are looking into a lot, for ways to set up chipping days and have DNR bring a WCC crew in. That's what we've done in all the property we've assisted with, but there's also opportunity for Okanagan Conservation District or DNR to come in and do a neighborhood chipping day. Of course, because these are other people bringing in a chipper or renting a chipper, there's costs involved. So one of the things Nancy and I are constantly doing is looking for grant opportunities. I do know Okanagan Conservation District did a chipping day last, I believe just this winter, up in the Foster Ranch area. And so that is the wave of the future, the chipping to help get rid of brush and debris that way. And in past, the Clean Air program here in the Valley has done green yard waste days where you can just drop it off and there's no cost associated with it. We're working toward that. We're not quite there yet, but as opportunities become available, that's something we're certainly working on getting word out about it.
Great, thank you. Thanks for all that work. Any other questions for Grace about, or comments, anything about the packet or her 5 action items to take?
I had one person tell me, actually, and I've done this, is take my clean greens in a garbage bag, put them in the back of my car, and I have quite a bit of room, and I can transport about 12 of them, take them to the dump, and then they have an area, you take them out of the bag and you keep the bag and go. So you can keep doing that if you have no other options. And I don't like to burn, and I don't like to pile them up either. So
great information. Yeah, thanks, Kathy. Dave, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. Part of the stuff in that outstanding packet was, fire extinguishers and having a first aid kit. Is it any possibility that one of these organizations could set up a group buy so that people could buy these things maybe at a little bit of a discount?
That's something that's been done through Methow before, and we've been talking about putting aside some funds to kind of do that again through Methow Ready. And so that's a wonderful idea, and there's kind of some plans in the work for that to kind of bring that back. So we will keep that in mind, especially with, I think we're more likely to have success if we just offer pre-made ones with a little bit of a discount. And so we're kind of in the moves to start that back up again.
Yeah, because my issue, I know I've got a first aid kit, but the thing's ancient. It's probably 20 years old.
Yeah, so you might have a dusty Band-Aid in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Any other questions? There's a second screen, and so I can't really, I'm going to flip to that real quick. Any other questions? Karen? Let's
I'm
see.
there. I unmuted myself.
Good job.
Hi, I just wanted, as far as the chipping goes, I know that I'm working on with my community here at Sun Mountain Ranch Club to, the Okanagan Conservation District has enough money to do about 25 properties in here where they will do the chipping for free, as far as I understand, and we just settle at least a maximum of 3 truckloads at the bottom of our driveway. So just letting people know that that's what we're doing here. So there is some money available with Conservation District, I believe, to provide the chipper, as long as we do the hard work to get it to for the chipper to easily access. Okay.
And Karen, do you know if that is being done in conjunction with support of you guys as you investigate how to better collectively as a neighborhood become FireWise?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm hoping anyway. She just sent me this email yesterday. I blew out a bunch of emails. I have to send out more, and I'm asking her again, is for sure, is the chipping free?
Yeah. And that is indeed one of the ways that both OCD, the Okanagan Conservation District, and the DNR work, that if you are a neighborhood collectively working toward becoming a FireWise neighborhood, you take the priority for funding and for WCC crews or chipping or any of that, because they want to support those people who are actively taking ownership of preparing and protecting themselves. So a neighborhood that's poised to do that is one that gets that kind of attention and will get the help with the fuel clearing and chipping, is my understanding.
Great. Thanks so much for that information. All right, Marie. You have to unmute. I can try to unmute you. Where are you?
Here it
There
is.
you go.
The contact list mentions at the very bottom, who will I check in with in a crisis, and who will check in on me? Is that the first one would be somebody out of the area?
I think it depends on the kind of plan that you want to make for yourself and what you feel you need. So who will I check in with and who will check in on me? So perhaps because I've put this with your neighbors, having someone in your immediate area that you have a plan with to check in with, and perhaps they'll check in with you as well. Being connected with your neighbors in this way can be incredibly helpful, especially in a moment where first responders perhaps are overwhelmed, or you just need someone who's close to you, who knows you, that can help out and check in.
Okay, I understand then, but I already have 3 names above that. So I thought this was a different question.
Perhaps, I think in some ways, it's the hope with those 2 questions is to get people thinking about which neighbors, like perhaps one of those neighbor names, maybe they only live here part-time, and so they're not somebody that you would be able to check in with all the time, or they're not someone that you could necessarily know that they're going to be there. So more just establishing a little bit of a plan with your neighbors alongside knowing their contact information.
Okay, okay.
Catherine.
I didn't see a space for somebody out of the area where you would go to.
And
Yeah, Catherine.
if I could jump in and just say, Maria, I think that would be a good place to put some names and contact information for people out of the area. My thinking is this: in times where we have lost all means of communication in the valley, as we did in Carlton Complex, it's important, if you leave and you've evacuated and people can't find you, you're going to want to have in advance done a couple of things. Set up a plan with friends, relatives, For some of you, it would be kids who are outside the area, so they know if you go to a certain evacuation level, you're going to tell them, here's what I'm going to do, and have contingency plans in there. It also then enables people here who are looking for you and people elsewhere who are looking for you to have a common contact point. So like Max was saying, it's helpful for them if that information is on the refrigerator. They can also see who they should be calling out of the area and who they should be trying to reach that way. And that might be the only way that for a couple of days until communication is restored and everybody, the dust settles, that may be the only way anyone can find you. And you find, you know, just let people know you're okay. Because that's one of the big issues is being able to.
Okay, very
let
good.
people know.
But it's just that on the form, it wasn't that clear. And I think I see that it should be on your refrigerator for somebody who would come to your house and doesn't know where you are. Okay.
Dave,
Thank you.
yeah.
A comment on Catherine's, or an additional comment. She commented on nobody being able to get communications out of the valley during the Carlton complex. That actually wasn't true. Because I had a diesel generator, we still had power, which meant we still had internet. And Carlin's daughter lives in San Francisco. We were actually getting better information about what was going on here from her than we were from local sources.
No, and Dave, that's actually what I was trying to say is it wasn't that, because we could communicate, like with Rover's Ranch, we were able to communicate. We would drive down to Hanks and we could get cell reception and communicate with our clients who were out of the area, but we could not communicate with anybody here in the valley because there were so many issues with power. A lot of people back then didn't have generators. That's when we got ours. And we got our little princess phone for our landline. But you know, if you were to take a worst case scenario and look at the campfire, again, the issue is people trying to connect with people. And so having people out of the area who have ways to know, even if you can't alert them, but have ways to know that something's going down with you and know where you're likely to be headed. And that was the other point I just wanted to mention with the emergency management system. Another use for that potentially is if you have someone who is pretty immobile and isn't able to easily evacuate and might need some assistance. One thing would be to have a buddy system, so that could be who would check in with me in a crisis. But also if somebody has kids out of the valley and they want to be alerted that things are going down, it doesn't hurt to have them sign up for the Nixle alerts as well. So the minute their parent goes to level 2, they know and can hightail it over the mountains to help.
What's Nixle?
Oh, that's the emergency management system. I apologize, I'm using a...
That's that Okanagan DEM?
Yeah, what Grace has been telling you about, that very first sign up.
Cool, thank you.
I wanted to say one other thing too, that I think that to communicate ahead of time with somebody, I think it's important to communicate with our neighbors, but a lot of times our neighbors are going to be also in that same situation that you are in. And so to communicate with somebody who lives farther away, you know, our valley has so many different little drainages. And so to actually find a buddy that's not necessarily in your same drainage and and so they know ahead of time, they're going to call you, and if they can't get a hold of you, they are going to come to your house. I think that that's another important piece. Paul.
Another idea that could and probably should be explored and communicated a little bit more. Following a recent newspaper article about a woman that was rescued from a Gardner Mountain area, who set up her own rescue using a GPS device, is from Garmin, called InReach. And after reading that and how smooth everything went and successful, we purchased that. We're just getting used to it. But with this small device, it communicates with a worldwide coverage satellite system. It doesn't require any power. It doesn't require outside power or Wi-Fi or phone connections. It doesn't use that. And it's meant for people that are lost, but the thing has been enhanced now so that you can communicate not only to emergency services, you can communicate to your family or anybody that you can text to, or even to like Facebook pages and things. I've tried it out. It's inexpensive. It takes a inexpensive subscription, but it's good from anywhere at any time to call for help or communicate to your family. It requires no phone, no Wi-Fi, any of that. And I think emergency services could go a long ways towards answering this deficiency by communicating the value of these devices.
Paul, you there?
How affordable is this?
They're about $350. RAI had them on sale for $300, and the monthly subscription is $15 a month for the months that you use it. You can sign up and use it while you're hiking. I'm a cyclist, and I often ride outside the cell phone range, but the thing is so small that why don't you go find it? That I can carry it in my bike jersey, and I can let people know I'm okay or if I need help. And every time it communicates, it identifies exactly where you are, not just by GPS coordinates, but it embeds a topo map with that's it.
Paul,
Jackie,
can you,
get it? It's about the size of a deck of cards.
Thank you.
Paul?
Yeah,
Can you tell us what that model, what's it called again? It's a Garmin. What's the model number, or what's the?
the
Does it have a
one you
name?
want, the one that is most useful is called the Garmin InReach Mini. Yeah. They have a full-size one that has more route finding topo use for backcountry wandering, but this one will work that way, but it's
Got it.
so
Thanks.
InReach Mini, and the technology is amazing. And the nice thing about it is this technology was available for rescues, but you wouldn't be of any use to you unless you needed a rescue. But this one, because you can have certain texts free, as many as you want. You can get 10 a month communications with text to anybody that you can text to. And I've tried it out, and they get the text, and when they get the text, there's a link that they can follow, and it'll show you exactly where you are precisely. And if you move, it changes that location. So emergency services, there's a picture of it right there, Karen.
Yeah, Karen has it. Wow, great information, Paul.
Yeah, it answers a lot of questions and solves the communication problem. And it's not as instant as a cell phone because it has to locate satellites, but usually within 20 seconds to a minute, the text goes through. And those people can answer you to your device. And if you call for rescue because you're disabled and can't self-evacuate, the rescue people can communicate with you ongoing by text to learn the extent of your dilemma, and any other necessary communications can just be texted back and forth.
Fantastic. Wow, thank you.
Absolutely, it solves so many issues.
That's great. And we had a question for Grace about the 2 life flights insurance. So we're going to turn towards that topic. Thanks, Marie, for that question.
Yeah, so you all received in your packets 2 little pieces of information about the 2 airlift services that operate in our area. So these are air ambulances, helicopters that would take you from here to a certain hospital, Wenatchee or Brewster, what have you, or even Seattle, depending on how serious your condition is.
Yes.
And so these air operations, some of you maybe have heard of Life Flight or maybe have that insurance. The thing that's changed in the past couple months has been how these memberships work. So essentially people will buy memberships to these services. They're about 60 to 75 bucks a year per household, which is a really great thing to do, because if you get airlifted out of here, it can be a bill upwards of $30,000. It can be a serious bill, but when you have a membership, that's covered. So one thing that was causing some confusion was the need to purchase 2 memberships, whereas Life Flight used to cover the region as a whole. This is essentially a change, I believe, in regulation for these companies. So now, in order to make sure that you don't get hit with a bill if you are airlifted out of here, you need a membership to both Life Flight and to Airlift Northwest. And I believe Life Flight is about 60 bucks, and I believe Airlift is 75 for the year. And it is a good thing to check in with either your insurance or your Medicare to see what might already be covered in these airlift services before you decide to purchase one of the memberships. So essentially, just because of this change in regulation, we need to now have 2 memberships if we're going to be covered by these 2 services that function in our area. Does that make sense? Hi, Frauke. I don't know where'd Tracy go?
So where
here we
does the
go.
other,
Uh,
where does the
go
other
ahead.
Life Flight go? Can you hear me? It's
Say that
Lucinda.
again.
Where does the second Life Flight go? Because we have one of them. We didn't know we needed a second one.
Yeah, so the reason for that is because the service that is going to help you and lift you out of here, there's 2 that function in the area, and you can't really control which one is going to pick you up. It's really just who's available. So what needs to happen is you need to have both coverages, because now if you have just Life Flight and you don't get airlift and you get picked up by airlift and taken to Wenatchee, that's when you could end up with a bill that you weren't prepared for.
It's incredible.
So they both operate here.
Mm-hmm.
And this didn't
incredible.
used to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry, Grace, I lost my connection and I got bumped off the call for a minute. So there was a change in the regulation. Is that the reason?
That's the information that I've gotten from the folks at Methow, and that's what we've been talking about. We weren't sure why it happened at first. We thought it was we didn't know why, because Life Flight they had both honored each other if you had a membership, and something changed. I believe it was early this year that something changed, and I believe it had to do with regulation. Yeah.
That should have been on the front page of the newspaper.
Well,
because we've all had one, thinking that we were covered by both.
Yeah.
It's first come for who's available.
Yeah.
Well, now it will be in the newspaper because Anne is here.
Well, actually, this is really, we have Life Flight, and I had no idea that there was any kind of a change that would require people who are subscribed to one or the other to need both. So yeah, I think that's something people really do need to know about. And this is certainly the first I've heard about it, because now I want to make sure that but it's going to at least double people's costs of what they have to pay.
Exactly. and they didn't let anyone know. I'm shocked.
That is weird. That it seems like there would have been some kind of, if you were a member of one or the other, it seems like you should have received some kind of notification from the company that there was some regulatory change that no longer provides you coverage.
Yes.
I'm seeing in the chat that Marie has calculated that it will be now $144 a year. So $12 a month.
It's not me who calculated it.
Oh.
Mel Cook has been studying the question, and so is David Caldwell. So I'm reporting that what people tell me for both of them. Yes.
Great.
Yeah, it should be in the newspaper. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's kind of it's its own issue that should be, reported.
Mm-hmm. So we have about 15 or so minutes left for this session, and I'd like to hear from folks if you have any further concerns or things that you would like to see or know. Grace, I see your hand up.
Oh, I was just getting my paper to write things down that people were thinking about.
Oh, okay. Just in terms of, further information sessions on fire or emergency preparedness, is there, and are there any other questions or concerns? I mean, one thing I think that we don't always think about is our whole nervous system, and how to kind of prepare our nervous system or our airspace, different things. Maria, I see your hand up.
Yeah, and it's not about our nervous system, it's about the list of stuff to do when you have to leave. There was somewhere about moving all the flammable stuff away from your windows, and also shut off the gas. Okay, I contacted OCEC about that, and they didn't recommend that you shut off the gas on your tank itself. If you have a turn on and off, yes, but don't go out to shut off your own tank. It is not necessary. I mean, they said they prefer that the fire people should take care of that if they want it shut off, but don't do it yourself.
That doesn't sound right to me.
I'd like to comment on that. It might have been one person that you talked to that had a different idea than the rest of the company. The fire people are going to be so busy. The last thing we're going to do is run around and turn off propane tanks. If we get there and we need to, then it's too late, to let you know, quite frankly. If it's on fire or it's venting, all we can do is hopefully protect the surrounding if there's enough people. In a disaster, something to consider is your own personal safety without anybody helping you. Think of the worst. Plan for the best. I mean, think of the best and plan for the worst. I had someone come up to me during the Carlton complex. Two of us were checking on smoke, and a woman came running up to me because she didn't have any phone service. My husband is trapped over in Wolf Creek. Trees are falling. There's a tree on a cow. We need help immediately. And we asked, is your husband trapped? No. Is anybody hurt? Not yet. This is the very first time in my life that I had to walk away from somebody. I couldn't help him. It was just me and one person who had peeled off from a fire to go check out some smoke. And we were heading back to that particular spot in the fire. We could do absolutely nothing, including contact dispatch. So I'm going to look into the propane tank information and figure out the safest way to do that. I don't know what to say to anybody who has natural gas. I don't know if we have that in the valley. As far as I know, we're not dealing with natural gas here. And I will check into the propane companies and find out their feeling on this. There may be a liability. They may not want you to touch the tank. I know you cannot turn it back on yourself once you have turned it off. You've got a lockout, as far as I know. So in some cases, you may not need to turn off your propane. Our propane tank is way away from anything, and it's sitting out in the middle of a field area, and I keep it clean. I keep it clean around it. So if it goes, if it starts venting, then I'm not as worried about that. If you have propane connections directly to your house, say you have a barbecue on your deck that's hardlined in, that's a whole different thing. You definitely want to turn that appliance off at the fixture, but I'll look into it and give the information to Tracy and she can get it out to everybody.
Yeah, good question. Thank you. And thanks, Max, for your feedback. Carol Ann.
I have a question. It sort of just occurred to me, but for those of us who are elderly and living alone, do you think it might be a good idea to instigate a program of a FireWise person coming and helping go through various things in this particular situation? It doesn't apply to other people. For instance, I live at the end of a road. It's only one way into my house and one way out. So I just am wondering, no matter what I do, if I've done enough. And maybe there would be somebody in a program who could come out and check.
Mac, do you want to talk, or shall I start and you continue?
You do it.
Okay. Carol Ann, that's a really good question. And this ties in with what we were talking about with Karen. Okay, getting an assessment of your property and learning, you know, what are the key things I need to be doing to address, to make my place as safe as possible for ingress and egress. If, you know, you're trying to get out and the fire department or the paramedics are trying to get in. And there are ways to do all of this. And then also looking at your property and how you can slow down fire or really reduce the risk of embers or heat, radiant heat, or even direct flame from getting to your house. So there's some really good programs, and 3 entities do assessments. Those would be Okanagan Conservation District with Kirsten Cook and Mindy Untalan. Also, Fire District 6 will do them as well, but you're looking at a volunteer program, and I'll ask Max how comfortable and able you guys are to do that. If you're on more land, then you could also have or you're incorporating your whole neighborhood into this assessment, you could have the Department of Natural Resources, Forest Health Division, the forester, come out, Jake Hart, to assess it. Getting an assessment is a really good thing. I will tell you, it can also be a frightening thing. If, like for Patrick and me with Rover's Ranch, we did that, and the list was so long of everything we needed to fix that it was quite daunting. So the other thing that you'll then want to do, this is why I would really recommend that you do an assessment, and I would recommend that you join in for Max's program that we're going to do next. Because what I love about Max's program is, she took me through this with my own house. You know, you start at the house, you look at what are going to be the pathways for fire to get to you, and you work from the house out. And you start at the road where you have a question about ingress and egress, because you're right to want to protect that road. And so those are your top priorities. It's also good to be looking at how you can get help. And I know there's different programs in place. You're here with a really good organization. So I think talking with Tracy about ways that you could have people help you with that would be really good. We're currently working, I'm working with my own little church, Methow Episcopal, to be looking at doing some service projects and helping senior citizens. And there's other work that way toward getting more people involved with helping in that effort of clearing away what needs to be taken care of. So Tracy, I know, will be able to provide you in her email, the follow-up email, with the contact information for Okanagan Conservation District. And then Max, what do you think, would that be the best way for Carol Ann to proceed? Or would that be something that you and the fire department would also want to maybe help her with?
I'll need to check with the fire department to see where their program is. I have to admit that COVID has really messed up a lot of our programs, even the ones we are trying to develop, because we've lost our communication link, of course, you know, without being able to have groups. And I applaud you all for doing this Zoom thing. This is my first time and I was really nervous about it. I mean, I am not technically inclined. I think I can get that information as well to Tracy and talk about it on the next broadcast.
I have another question on why was it recommended in the package of things we got to turn our sprinkler system off? I mean, my sprinkler system goes on every day and it's keeping everything green and wet around my house.
Can I speak to that? A lot of times people will turn on all of their sprinklers that are not automatic and evacuate. And in most cases, if you have a large fire moving towards a structure and it's moving fast, chances are it's wind driven, there's a lot of fuel, and it's really hot. And a lot of times the sprinkler water that hits the surfaces and ground evaporate off almost immediately. In many cases, people have run their pumps, their wells dry, and we can get there and we were going to use their hose that they had laying out and there's no water. Their well is dry. It may have been going for 2 days if they had evacuated. So a lot of times if everything is ready, now in your case, you have automatic systems.
Well, Max, more than that, I have a system that works off of a cistern. So I have 1,200 gallons of water. That's it. When the cistern is
that's all. That's not very much.
No.
Even in a fire, in a real fire, when we take a stand and fire is coming at us, we wait to the last second, so to speak, the whites of its eyes, where the stream of the water and our water will not evaporate as fast, and it makes a big difference. Pouring water on a metal roof is kind of a waste of time. Most of your exposure is your roof, and then anything pressing up against your structure that will catch a spark and then catch that bush and put it on fire. Running sprinklers and keeping your land green all the time during fire season is probably the more effective way than to turn them on at the last second. I have the same system set up, and if I saw fire coming, I sure the heck would turn my sprinklers on. If my water was going, quite frankly, that was the very first thing we did was lose all of our power, and that was the end of our sprinkler system. So I guess it's an individual call, but please don't use up all your water running it for 3 days or even 4 hours before the fire department gets there.
And I would add that that is also true if you're working off an irrigation system. In Rising Eagle Fire, the Wolf Creek ditch went completely down because everybody along the Wolf Creek ditch cranked on all their water. So then the folks who were actually closest to the fire had no water pressure either. So it's one of those things where you need to be thinking of a longer haul with the water and thinking of your community too. So.
Yeah. Catherine, you sort of just answered what I was going to ask, but it brought up another question. Are there policies in effect for the various irrigation systems during wildfire? We're on MVID. I've got an automatic system set up. Water's a big pasture for my chickens and whatnot. And it runs all the time. Unless something goes wrong, I don't have to deal with it, which is why I set it up that way. But are there policies in effect? Because that's a lot of water.
And whoops, am I on? There we go. And I don't know the answer to that question, Dave. I know with our ditch, they told us, do not go turning on the water during a wildfire, especially if you're down far enough away where it's, there's folks who are up close and right there. And what we found in our fire was that the fire department actually called us because we'd left our cell phone number on our door telling the fire department where we were. And they said, where's your irrigation? We want to try and see if we can get any water out of it, which they couldn't, but they tried. So that's a good question. I can certainly ask that question. I'll make a note to myself if there are policies in place for what to do with the different ditches and how people should be using their water during a wildfire event.
So we have 3 minutes left, and I just want to open it up. I see Carol Ann's hand up, and then we'll talk about moving forward real quick. Carol Ann.
Well, I just in light of what Catherine just said, should I make some indication somewhere that a fire department could tap into my cistern?
I'll defer to Max, but I know that's the fire department told us they appreciated the information that we left for them. We'll hear from Max, the responder.
It's on an individual basis. Lots of times people call up and give us all kinds of information, and that we don't carry a lot of that information on our trucks. People, oh, here's a key to my water system, and if you need this and this, here's this and that. The best thing you can do is make everything obvious and available. Hoses outside where we can see them, a ladder someplace where we can get up on your roof and do anything we can before the fire comes. As far as the fittings and stuff, sometimes we do have ways to, some people have contacted the fire department and got our fittings specifically put on their systems. If we can get to the top, we'll just throw a straw down there and pump out of it if we can. It really is an individual situation, and then how many people we have to work at that particular location. So if it's a big fire, there'll be less people. If it's a small fire, then you'll have everybody and his brother there with every truck in the department. So we're running around trying to get to everybody that we can, and it is put on a priority basis and who we can get to. And in some cases, if you live in an area that you evacuated out of because it's dangerous, we may not be able to go into that area to assess it, just because we don't want to get cut off with our fire trucks and the road burns over behind us, and then we can't help anybody. So it's kind of an individual thing. And I know you can call the fire department on water system questions, and they, if nothing else, leave them a message or email the district, and they will talk to you about fittings for your cisterns and if that's required, or if you have a way that we can just drop something in a pond nearby.
Excellent questions and responses. Frauke, you have to unmute.
This is a question for Grace, and maybe you already answered it, but we have a lot of neighbors who have places here from the west side, and they pretty much moved in, are not members of Methow at Home. Is it possible to get this packet to them? Are there extra packets, or should I just Xerox what I have or we'd like all of our, we live way up the Twist River, and
And have you gotten some new neighbors recently?
No, we know all our neighbors, but many of them have come and are just going to stay. So they have places here, and yeah.
So in particular, one thing we can do just for that is to, I can get, if you request a number of packets from me, I can get those to you lickety split. And you could use that as a way to connect with your neighbors if you'd like, and just bring those over and drop them off. And the other thing we're doing to kind of try to address, new people moving to the Valley who aren't necessarily keyed into certain things just because they don't know about them. Currently we're aiming to start working, getting packets to folks who are moving in, and then finding other ways in which to reach people who have moved here but aren't really well acquainted with the landscape of fire season. So in particular, anyone who would like to do this same thing too, to get some packets that they can then give to their neighbors or a friend even, be in touch with me, metowready@gmail.com, or you can use my phone number, which again is on the front of the handbook here. It's 509-449-0069. I will answer text, and I will pick up between 9 and 5 on weekdays. And sometimes if you call me at other points, I'll pick up too.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to respect everybody's time. And so I just want to let's give some applause to our presenters. What an awesome presentation. Thank you so much for all of your efforts. And the presenters and Anne, we're going to stay on this call. But I just want to put in a plug. Max and Catherine are going to be back, and Max is going to do another presentation for us that's really going to be a little bit more honed in. And you know what, you two, I'm embarrassed to say that I don't have that date and time written down, and we don't have it up on the website yet, but I will be getting, it will be in your events bulletins coming out from Deirdre, or also in the newsletter. I think is it the 8th?
It's the 8th, and I believe we agreed on 9:30.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 8th, July 8th, which is a Wednesday.
Great, thank you for that reminder. So we'll be having another session July 8th at 9:30. And thank you all so much for being here. Thanks to our volunteers, and thanks to everyone for doing what you need to do to stay safe. And with that,
could you repeat the telephone number for Grace, please? I didn't get the last 4 numbers.
Absolutely. Okay. 509-449-0069.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everybody. Great
Thank you.
job.
Thank
you.
yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good to see you.
And before you go, would you be able to send me your email?
Sure.
Well, we're gonna have a conversation right now.
Are you getting an envelope?
Yeah, so I can just, do you want me to just, I can tell you right now, or I can just send it to your Methow Ready?
That would be perfect.
Address.
I know we've communicated, but for some reason I just have one that when I send you an email, it doesn't work. So yeah.
It might be an older, you might be sending it to my Methow Valley News address.
I think I am.
Yeah, I'll give you my personal one. I'll just send it to you. And you just answered, I think I had only 2 questions for you. And one was, how do people get a packet? I assume the packet you're referring to was sent out to all the Methow at Home folks, since that's who this is geared to.
That's what we had a letter in there that was addressed specifically to the Methow at Home folks. But this packet is great for anybody. And we're working on tailoring to different people, so getting it out through different avenues. But if people request one, we'll do our best to make sure we can keep producing these to get them out into the community. So we'll work to try and have it. Because of COVID, it's less likely that we're gonna try and encourage folks to come to Arrow Meadow to pick them up, but more that we would have people request them, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, so I can just say that I can just give that contact info, the meadowready.org, or your phone number if people are interested. Okay.
Absolutely.
And
That's
the other
one
thing I
thing,
just noticed.
I would like to have that as well, if I could, please, your contact info.
Sure, Catherine. So what's your email address?
Yeah, so it is my organizational one. It's K-A-T .heim, H-E-I-M dot F-A-M-V, that stands for Fire Adapted Methow Valley, at gmail.com.
Okay, great. I'll
Thank
just
you.
shoot an email to you. That's perfect. And Grace, the other thing is, while we were sitting here, I went to your website and I was going through the 5 simple steps. And just FYI, one of the things I've been meaning to do is get reflective, addresses, and I keep not doing it. So I thought, oh, well, I'm just going to go sign up online. That link to Winthrop Firefighters Association doesn't work.
I adjusted one of the links last night because both of them didn't go through, and I need to grab that one. Thank you for doing that. The other thing I'll say too is that my hope is, Anne, to have by Friday to have a virtual version of the packet up with a button on our home screen for people to just click the button and then access it. Because, again, with COVID, that's just easier than getting a lot of, and it's cheaper than getting a lot of paper copies out to people. So I will, the aim is to have that done by Friday.